In One Piece, strength isn't always about how hard you hit. Sometimes it's about how effortlessly you show everyone who's in charge. From Mihawk arriving alone on a tiny boat and humiliating Zoro with a tiny dagger to Garp, shaking an entire island with one punch. These are the moments when One Piece characters flexed way too hard. We start with the world's strongest swordsman. While others sail with fleets and firepower, Mihawk arrives alone. No crew, no cannons, just a coffin-shaped boat slicing through the ocean like it owns the sea. But even that entrance wasn't the real flex. That came when Zoro, the proud Strawhat swordsman, challenged him, and Mihawk answered with nothing but a dagger barely longer than his hand.
全力を出すバカな獣とは違う。バカにするのも大概にしろ。
After the time skip, the Straw Hat crew returned with serious upgrades. Everyone had grown in strength, in attitude, in presence, and yet, Luffy was still Luffy. Despite spending 2 years training under Silver's Rayleigh, the former right-hand man of the Pirate King, he somehow ended up tagging along with a group of fake Straw Hats the moment he got back. 2 years of learning Haki, developing new techniques, and preparing for the dangers of the new world. And he still couldn't spot an obvious imposter. But when a pacifista appears, Luffy shows exactly what those 2 years were really for.
遅え。いや、セカンド。ジェットピストル。
Just when the battle on Thriller Bark seemed to be over, peace lasted only a few seconds. Out of nowhere, another warlord of the sea appears. And he's not here to talk. He's here for Luffy. He makes his entrance with a devastating blast, taking almost everyone out in an instant. The crew drops one by one, unconscious, helpless, except for Zoro. As Kuma moves to take Luffy, Zoro steps in. He knows he doesn't stand a chance, but he doesn't back down. What follows isn't a fight. It's something far more intense. Zoro makes an offer that speaks louder than any attack could. Sanji shows up too, broken and bleeding, ready to do the same. But Zoro stops him, and what happens next becomes one of the most iconic scenes in the entire series.
文字通りお前がこの苦痛を受ける。試してみる。どうだ。食べさせてくれ。野郎、どこだ。何もかも無事なわけねえ。いた。おい、あの七部会どこに。
The only one who's put his body on the line for the crew. Sanji's had his moment too. They're not just the strongest fighters among the Straw Hats, they're Luffy's wings. And when things get serious, they show exactly why. During the Skypiea arc, Usopp and Nami came face to face with one of the most overwhelming enemies they had ever seen. There was no chance of winning, not against someone like that. But then Sanji stepped in. He took the hit, protected the crew, and somehow stayed cool through all of it. And now that we know he's a vent smoker, it makes a lot more sense how he survived.
深みを言い残したことが一つあった。
なんだ。
悪いな。タバコの火欲しかったとこだ。
誰も遠くへ行かねえように。俺にはついてこれねえぞ。いや、セカンド。
Now we get to a pure power flex. When Luffy and his crew declared war on the world government, there was no turning back. From that moment on, it was all or nothing, and the crew was willing to risk everything to save Nico Robin. Even Luffy, whose fighting style had always been raw and instinctive, knew that brute strength wouldn't be enough this time. To break through to beat someone like Plueno, he had to level up. That's when Gear 2nd entered the picture. His body started to steam, his stance dropped, and the air around him shifted. He moved faster, hit harder, and what follows is pure dominance. This wasn't just a new move, it was a straight-up power upgrade. From Gear 2 to Gear 5, Luffy's power-ups have always been flexes, just in very different ways. Gear 2 was all about speed, precision, and raw intent. Gear 5 throws all of that out the window. It bends the rules, breaks expectations, and turns the battlefield into something that feels more like a playground than a war zone. Gear 5 doesn't just overpower enemies, it overwhelms everything. He absolutely knows how to flex. Next on our list, Shanks versus Useless Kid. Just when this kid thought he could take on a Yonko, Daddy Shanks stepped in and reminded him that he wasn't fighting Big Mom this time. This was Big Dad. If you've watched until here, drop a flex comment. And thanks for the support. It wasn't about putting on a show, though. It was about sending a message so clear no one dared misinterpret it. Flex so sharp, it didn't just end the fight. It made Kid a meme. Found themselves cornered with nowhere to run. Among the chaos stood three of the most unpredictable rookies the Grand Line had seen so far: Luffy, Useless Kid, and Law. They weren't allies, and they certainly weren't coordinated, but in that moment, they didn't need to be. Surrounded, outnumbered, and well aware of what they were up against, they didn't retreat, they smiled. biggest flex wasn't a punch, power-up, or a final attack. It was stopping the strongest forces in the world without even fighting. When the battle reached its peak, everything felt out of control. Ace and Whitebeard had already fallen, but it still wasn't enough for Sakazuki. He kept pushing forward, unwilling to stop, and the battlefield descended into chaos. In the middle of it all, a young Marine stepped forward. His voice trembled, but he shouted anyway, begging for the fighting to end. For a moment, time itself seemed to stop as the chaos on the battlefield faded. No one moved, no one spoke. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath. Were clear, and all eyes turned to the captain. Luffy made his entrance in the most Luffy way possible. He appeared out of nowhere, sent Hody flying with a single kick, and didn't say much. And just a few seconds later, he reminded everyone exactly why he's the captain. A quiet moment, and a perfect flex.
Oi, Luffy!
It was pure chaos. Everyone was fighting everyone. Explosions echoed across the battlefield, and alliances meant nothing. In the middle of it all, Sanji, true to form, was busy saving women instead of throwing punches. But then, everything changed. Without warning, Saturn stood up, and in that moment, the people on the island didn't need to be told. They felt it. Something dangerous was coming. The air grew heavier, the noise faded, and even the most fearless turned to look. His entrance was a real flex, built on nothing but pure aura. Last on our list, we have Garp flexing his power. When he stepped in to save Koby, there was no hesitation. From the very first moment, he made it clear that despite his age, he was not someone to be underestimated. What followed wasn't just powerful, it was explosive. A single strike so massive it lit up the entire battlefield and left no doubt about who it arrived.